Last time, we talked about the lie that retirement equals freedom. That one day, after decades of grinding, you'll finally own your time. But what happens when you realize that's just another story? That someday is just another trap? Because once you stop believing that retirement will set you free, a harder question surfaces. How much is enough? That's when the math shows up. The so-called target number. 1 million? 2 million? More? The number they say you need to finally breathe, to rest. And maybe you've already started chasing it. Saving, investing, planning. But Alan Watts would stop you right there and ask something different. What if freedom doesn't come from hitting a number? What if it comes from living without a script? Because let's be honest, this was always a script. A formula handed down to us that says you need to earn the right to live, that peace comes after, that aliveness is conditional. And so you run after the number, not because you love wealth, but because you're scared of life without it. You chase security, safety, permission to stop pretending, to stop optimizing, to finally admit you're not okay living like this. You think you're chasing freedom, but what you're really chasing is relief. The truth? The issue isn't how much you have, it's what you think that money is for. Most people don't want millions. They want the feeling of enough. They want to stop running, to stop feeling like they have to earn their rest. The idea of retirement was never just about money, it was about permission. The hope that one day you'll finally be allowed to enjoy your life, without guilt. But Alan Watts shattered that idea. Life isn't a race to some golden finish line. Life is now, not after your bank account grows, not after you finally buy the house or cash out your investments. Now. The real issue is that most of us were trained to live in not yet. Think about it. When you were young, you were told to study hard so you could get into a good school, then to do well in school so you could land a job, get the job so you could save so you could retire, and retire so you could finally be happy. But here's the trap, that someday never shows up. Because the habit of waiting becomes a lifestyle, it becomes your identity. And when you finally do have the time and space, you've forgotten how to feel alive. Behavioral economists call this delay discounting. We undervalue the present in favor of some distant reward. But the longer you delay joy, the harder it gets to recognize it when it's right in front of you. And that's why so many people stay stuck in jobs they quietly hate. According to Gallup's 2023 report, 61% of Americans are emotionally detached from their work. Think about that. Most people aren't working out of passion. They're just afraid of what happens if they stop. It's not about thriving. It's about maintaining momentum. Because stopping means facing the silence. And in that silence, you might have to admit, you never wanted this life in the first place. That's the cost of chasing retirement like it's a finish line. It teaches you how to run, but not how to arrive. You trade your time now to buy your life later. But Watts reminds us, you can't stockpile aliveness. You can't save it like money in a bank account. Life is happening, with or without you. And the longer you wait, the more later turns into a ghost you keep chasing in circles. So ask yourself, what are you actually running toward? And what are you running from? Until you face that question, you'll keep delaying the only thing that's ever been real. This moment. The breath you're taking right now. The part of you that's been quietly whispering, you don't need to earn your right to live. You just need to stop believing that it starts after the work is done. If you keep living this way, retirement won't be a reward. It'll feel like a loss. Like waking up too late and realizing the best parts of your life were spent preparing for a future that never really arrived. And when that fantasy crumbles, the world hands you another one to chase. Not retirement, financial freedom, passive income, cash flow, investment portfolios, real estate. The dream now has a different name but the same promise. If you just build enough wealth, you can finally relax, finally live. But Alan Watts saw right through that illusion too. To hold your breath is to lose your breath. And that's exactly what most people are doing, holding their breath, waiting for the day the numbers feel high enough to feel safe. But here's the tragic twist. A lot of people do hit the number. They retire with millions. They have everything they thought they needed, and still feel lost, still feel anxious, still feel like something's missing. Not because they failed, but because they never practiced being present. They knew how to optimize, not how to exist. Freedom isn't a product. It's not something you buy. It's not hiding in an account balance or a rental property. It's a practice. And if you never practice it, if you never train for it, you won't recognize it when it finally shows up. In 2010, Nobel laureate Daniel Kahneman found something revealing. Beyond a certain income, around $90,000 a year, people's emotional well-being doesn't really improve. More money means more comfort, but not more happiness. Because happiness isn't about how much you have, it's about where your attention is. It's your ability to be fully here, instead of constantly chasing somewhere else. But most people never get taught this. They spend years learning how to earn, how to grind, how to plan, but never how to pause. How to feel life instead of just preparing for it. The ones who get it, who really get it, start to live differently. They stop waiting for permission. They stop trying to make every moment productive. They start building what Watts would call mini retirements into their everyday life. Not big vacations or milestones, but simple, human moments. A walk without purpose. A quiet morning without guilt. A conversation without rushing. Moments that aren't about achievement, but about aliveness. And the more you practice those small moments, the less afraid you become. The less you feel like you need to justify your existence through productivity. But here's the paradox. The world will keep telling you the opposite. That rest is earned. That stillness is laziness. That if time isn't producing something, it's wasted. And so, we keep moving, keep working, keep proving. But the people who never slow down, they never learn how to stop. And the people who never stop, they forget how to feel. So no, the question isn't, do I have enough money to be free? The real question is, have I practiced being free at all? Because if you haven't, if you've spent your life holding your breath, deferring joy, waiting for the perfect moment, you'll reach the end gasping. And freedom, true freedom, will feel foreign. Not because it's impossible, but because you never let yourself learn how to live it. You see, freedom isn't distant. It's not on the other side of a 40-year plan. It's right here, buried under all the scripts, schedules, and strategies. But we've been taught from a young age not to live, but to prepare. From the moment we could understand words, we were trained to look ahead. Next test, next grade, next job, next step. Always becoming, never just being. No one ever told you when life would begin, because it never does. It just keeps moving, like the horizon. And the minute you think you've arrived, the goalpost shifts again. That's the danger of living on someone else's timeline. You spend your life rehearsing for a moment that never comes. And Alan Watts knew that. That's why he said, "You are under no obligation to be the person you were told to be." Because that version of you, the one chasing approval, success, stability, that's not who you are. That's who the system needed you to be. You were raised to perform, to please, to fit the mold. School didn't teach you how to be present. It taught you how to compete. Work didn't ask what made you come alive. It asked what made you useful. And now you've inherited a rhythm. One where the present is never enough. One where you're always playing catch-up. And the tragedy? It's not that life is short. It's that we spend so much of it preparing to live, we forget to actually do it. So what does it mean to unlearn? It means stepping out of that rhythm. Letting go of the belief that your value comes from how much you do. It means realizing that peace isn't earned by checking off your to-do list. Joy isn't a reward for exhaustion. And life doesn't begin after your inbox is empty or your retirement account hits a certain number. Life begins the moment you let yourself feel it, even in the middle of the mess. Those quiet moments you've been brushing off, the slow coffee, the deep breath, the unplanned walk, the laughter that interrupts your schedule. Those are the real moments, not the filler, not the distractions, the point. To unlearn is not to run away from responsibility. It's to reclaim your rhythm, to stop waiting for some dramatic event to validate your existence and start living inside the small, often overlooked moments. Because the truth is, the most human parts of life rarely look impressive, but they feel like you. That's the deeper shift. Once you break the trance, once you stop treating your life like a waiting room for something bigger, you realize the issue wasn't just the goal, it was the pace. You were never meant to sprint through life chasing a number. You were meant to move with rhythm, your rhythm. not the one designed for someone else's expectations. Alan Watts said, "The meaning of life is just to be alive." But look around. Everyone's rushing, panicking, trying to achieve something beyond themselves, like being here isn't enough. But it is enough. And the people waking up to that? They're living differently. There's a quiet movement happening. People opting out of the race, people slowing down, not because they're lazy, but because they're tired of sacrificing their lives for a finish line that never stops moving. They're choosing depth over speed, presence over performance, a life that doesn't look like success on paper, but feels like freedom in the soul. Movements like slow living, financial independence, intentional work. They're not trends, they're survival. They're what happens when people realize that the old game doesn't work anymore. Because when you stop measuring your life by income or output, you make space for something rare, alignment, a life that actually feels like yours, one that's not rented from someone else's rules or schedules, one that's designed with your heartbeat in mind. And that's the real freedom, not quitting your job or fleeing society, but shifting the center of your life from obligation to intention, from performance to presence, from survival to choice. That's when you stop asking, how much money do I need to be free? And start asking, how do I want to feel while I'm alive? Because you're not here to impress the world. You're here to inhabit your life. And this is what nobody told you about retirement. Most people don't retire from a job. They retire from a persona, a role they've been performing for decades. The respectable adult, the tireless achiever, the responsible one who never breaks character. But eventually, that character starts to break you. You don't need to hit a magic number to let go. You need the courage to stop performing a version of yourself that was never real. The strength to say, I'm done proving, I'm done rushing, I'm done waiting. Because freedom was never a number. It was never in the spreadsheet. It's in the moment you stop asking for permission. The moment you remember you were always allowed to feel peace, to move slower, to just be. Alan Watts said, "You were always free to walk off the stage. You just didn't know the performance was optional." So what happens when you do? When you stop acting? When you let the roles fall away? That's where your life begins. Not the one you were sold, but the one that's always been waiting under the noise. Not a 5-step plan, not a perfectly crafted brand. Just you, present, unfiltered, human. Because the truth is, you were never broken. You were never too late. You were just buried, under expectations, under pressure, under 1,000 silent contracts about what you were supposed to be. And when you finally let go, when you retire not from work but from performance, you find something nobody can sell you. Not clarity, not certainty, but permission. Permission to breathe, to feel, to exist without apologizing for it. So the next time you find yourself asking, how much do I need to retire? Stop, take a breath, and ask the real question. How much of my life have I already put on hold? Because maybe what you're chasing isn't freedom at all. Maybe it's just the courage to stop pretending. And maybe that courage starts right now.